Alchemy Emperor of the Divine Tao. Chapter 11, Fourth Layer of Body Refining Tier. He could finally start cultivating. Ling Han had been waiting for it for 3 long days. Add to that the long wait he had experienced for the past 10,000 years, and it was no wonder that he would immediately sit in a cross-legged position to cultivate now that he realized he could finally start cultivating. However, just as he was about to circulate 5 elements heaven-grade skill, he paused for a while, stood up and opened the door to his room, entering the courtyard outside. Lu Yutong was still in seclusion to break through to the 9th layer of element gathering tier inside the inner chamber. If he started cultivating too close to her, he would disturb the spiritual environment within this small area and affect her cultivation. See, what a considerate master he was. Ling Han sat cross-legged in the courtyard. This courtyard belonged to his father, Ling Dongxing. As the clan head of the Ling clan, the courtyard was naturally very big, but Ling Han had long since dismissed the servants, and would only allow someone to deliver the 3 meals of the day here. Come, come, let me see the greatness of an immortal grade spirit base. With a mental command from Ling Han, his spirit base immediately bloomed like a flower. A lotus of the Tao, the 5 elements in balance, this was the most perfect form of a spirit base. Wang. The spiritual chi immediately rushed over from all directions, rich beyond compare. The 5 elements of the world, gold, wood, water, fire and earth, and thus 5 different types of spiritual chi rushed frantically into his body, the latter like a thirsty horse drinking from a spring. Ordinarily, a person had no way to absorb more than one type of spiritual chi because it was impossible to simultaneously refine more than one type of it. That's why cultivators usually focused only on one in their cultivation. For example, someone could have a spirit base with a dual alignment of fire and earth, the fire spirit base being slightly stronger. It meant that the absorption rate of fire-type spiritual chi would be higher, so he would only need to focus on refining fire-type spiritual chi, and would not be able to obtain both at an earth-type spiritual chi. However, the wonderful characteristic of the 5 elements mix chaos lotus was that it could take advantage of the mutual reinforcement and restraint of the 5 elements, and make the 5 different types of spiritual chi create a perfect balance. Note: the idea about 5 elements in Chinese philosophy is that each element supports one but also restrains another. So, for example, wood amplifies, supports fire, but fire is being restrained by water. However, absorbing spiritual chi was one matter, refining it was another. Only 5 elements heaven-grade skill could achieve both. This cultivation technique was not something just anyone could control. It required high-level multitasking and did not allow any errors or mistakes. Otherwise, the origin power could enter the wrong pathways. A light consequence of this would be spitting out some fresh blood. The most serious consequence would be instant death. Immortal grade spirit base, heaven grade skill, and extremely strong control. Only with these 3 factors combined would one possessing the 5 elements mix chaos lotus spirit base be able to cultivate 5 elements heaven grade skill. Being able to satisfy such high requirements, Ling Han's cultivation speed could be imagined. Endless spiritual chi rushed inwards and Ling Han's body continuously generated origin power, refining his blood, flesh, veins and bones. A martial artist of the body refining tier had not yet opened up his dantian, and so could only store his origin power within his blood, flesh, veins and bones. Only once he stepped into the element gathering tier could he open up his dantian and form a small world within his body to accommodate his origin power there. In his previous life, he was a strong warrior of the heaven tier, so naturally he would not make any wrong turns on the path of cultivation. As he now possessed the greatest spirit base in the world and cultivated the best first-rate technique in existence, the speed of his progress was naturally as if he had grown wings and taken flight. The middle period of the 2nd layer of body refining tier, late period, peak, with only a slight tremble of his body, the hurdle for the 3rd layer of body refining tier was immediately overcome. So fast. Ling Han nodded secretly. In his last life, he had a high-level heaven-grade spirit base, but he had still spent 12 days to get from the 2nd layer of body refining tier to the 3rd layer of body refining tier. However, it was not because a high-level heaven-grade spirit base was really poor in comparison to an immortal-grade spirit base, but rather because Ling Han had been cultivating a high-level yellow-grade cultivation technique at that time. The present him was as if standing on the shoulder of a giant. There was no way that his last life could compare to the starting point he was at now. He had no intention of stopping there. He intently and continuously refined the spiritual chi from the environment, turning it into his own body's origin power. The early period of the third layer of body refining tier, middle period, late period, peak. Within only a few hours' time, he had reached the limit of the third layer and thus of the early stage of the body refining tier. However, after spending such a long time cultivating, his mental energy was largely depleted. The requirements for controlling 5 elements heaven grade skill were quite high after all. If he continued cultivating, he could refine his origin power at any moment, bringing only harm and no benefit. Still, he had already reached this level, so no matter what, he wanted to break through to the 4th layer of body refining tier today. The 3rd layer was still the early stage of body refining tier, while the 4th layer was the middle stage. This was a large leap and not just a simple breakthrough from one layer to another. For an ordinary person to think of breaking through twice in a short period of time, that was without doubt a complete fantasy. No matter what, to break through would require at least 2 or 3 days of accumulating origin power. However, Ling Han was a warrior of the heaven tier in his last life, so to him, there were no bottlenecks before heaven tier. Breakthrough. He snorted lightly, and there was a subtle change within his body. With a slight tremble of his body, he had once again broken through. 4th layer of body refining tier, now this can finally be shown to others. He showed a slight smile. Although this layer of cultivation could not be considered really high amongst those of the same age, to consecutively break through 2 minor layers within a single night was still something that gave him great satisfaction. Moreover, the cultivation technique he was using was a heaven-grade skill. His origin power was incomparably pure, its quality far higher than that of any other person's. The power of the 4th layer of body refining tier he wielded was enough to compare with the power of someone from the peak period 5th layer of body refining tier, or even the 6th layer. Sleep. He got onto the bed. Due to the large expense of his mental energy, he very quickly fell asleep. However, it was a light sleep as his consciousness was still 70% alert, so that he could immediately awaken at the smallest disturbance. The night passed quickly, and he was shaken awake by a great fluctuation of origin power. He immediately sat upright, revealing a very alert expression, but then immediately realized that it was not an enemy attack, but rather Lu Yutong who had broken through. To break through to the 9th layer of element gathering tier from the 8th layer of element gathering tier in 3 days, her talent was really quite good. For every tier, the further one got, the harder it was to break through. It was as if one was rowing a boat against the tide. With a soft sound, the hanging curtain of the doorway opened, and he could see Lu Yutong walk out, a strong energy fluctuation present around her body. She had just broken through, and was still unable to control the energy swelling around her body properly. "I broke through," she said to Ling Han, and there was delight and pride on her beautiful face. 3 days to completely breach the gap between 2 layers, moreover the most difficult one between 8th and 9th layer, this was indeed something to take pride in. She looked towards Ling Han, hoping to hear a compliment from the other's mouth. However, her joy and pride very quickly completely vanished. The expression on her face was as if she had just seen a ghost. Pointing towards Ling Han, she said, you're already in the 4th layer of body refining tier." She remembered very clearly that, before her seclusion, Ling Han was only at the 2nd layer of body refining tier. Moreover, Zhu Hixin's medicine had only been delivered yesterday morning. Carefully calculating, from the moment his spirit base recovered to the moment he broke through to the 4th layer of body refining tier, Ling Han had only spent 1 day and 1 night. 1 day and 1 night to break through 2 minor layers. Under comparison, what would her spending 3 days just to break through 1 layer counters? Everyone said that the young master of the Ling clan was a standard piece of trash, but if someone with this kind of progress rate was still considered a piece of trash, then what would she count as? A piece of trash amongst all other trash. You're now in the 4th layer of body refining tier. Even her voice had a slight tremble in it. If someone had told her a day ago that she would be shocked because of someone breaking through to 4th layer of body refining tier, she would have replied with nothing but a snort of contempt. However, if they added that someone spent one day to break through from the second layer of body refining tier to the fourth layer of body refining tier, she would definitely find that the biggest joke in the world. She had once thought that there would be no more miracles from Ling Han, yet she never imagined that she would once again experience such an earth-shattering shock. Ling Han nodded, and with a calm tone, he said, "That's right, what of it? How can you dismiss it so lightly?" Lu Yutong immediately felt as if she was about to go mad. Alchemy Emperor of the Divine Tao. Chapter 12, Father's Return. Peng, 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 peng. It was at that very moment that an urgent knocking was heard from the door. Ling Han walked over and opened the door only to see a boy servant. He had already commanded that, if there was no urgent business, he was not to be disturbed. Thus, he asked, "What happened?" "The clan head has returned," the boy servant hurriedly said. Excitement instantly rose within Ling Han's body, pressing him to meet with that man. This was an instinctive reaction of the body. "Father," he murmured. He had inherited this body, and had also inherited the blood and responsibility that belonged to this body. He turned and smiled at Lu Yutong, saying, "Yutong, come with me to meet my father." A red blush immediately flew upon Lu Yutong's beautiful face. She felt as if she was a daughter-in-law going to meet with her parents-in-law. Pay. She hurriedly spat in her heart a few times. Why would she have this kind of feeling? There was nothing going on between herself and this guy. "Where is father?" Ling Han asked the boy servant. "In the main hall." Ling Han headed towards the main hall, and the pace of his steps increased from walking to running. There was a powerful longing in his heart. The moment he barged into the living hall, he saw a man of about 40 years old, standing there proudly. He had a tall, broad figure, a handsome face, and exuded a powerful aura. At that moment, Ling Han could not longer differentiate whether it was the instinctive reaction of the body, or the fact that he was an orphan in his last life and so thirsted for familial love. His eyes could not help growing wet, and the blood relation running through his veins caused him to easily call out, "Father." "Hannah." Ling Dongxing laughed heartily and quickly walked over to embrace Ling Han. However, he immediately put on a shocked expression and said, "Why are you still in the clan residence? Aren't you supposed to have gone to Huyang Academy?" This was fatherly love. This was fatherly love. Ling Han greedily enjoyed the embrace of his father. Although in his last life, someone with Ling Dongxing's cultivation level was not even qualified to enter his eyes, now he was shaken to the point that his eyes were brimming with tears. He had finally cast aside the identity of his last life to enjoy his new life. He was no longer a loner without any family. He had a father, a good father who would risk his own life for him. He rubbed at the corners of his eyes, shook his head and said, "I don't want to go to Huyang Academy." "Why?" Ling Dongxing asked. He knew that the quality of his only son's spirit base was too poor. Even though he had expended various efforts, his cultivation still did not make any progress. This was something that could not be helped. And he too had worked very hard to send Ling Han to Huyang Academy, which was to make use of the various immeasurable resources on hand at Huyang Academy to forcibly raise Ling Han's cultivation level to element gathering tier. Only with that could he die without regrets. But Ling Han actually said he did not want to go to Huyang Academy. This caused his anger to rise. There was no helping being born with poor talent, but if there was not even a tiny bit of desire to improve oneself, then there really was no cure. Ling Han naturally couldn't say that he had been a warrior of the heaven tier in his last life and there were countless high-level cultivation techniques and martial skills stored within his head, or that he had obtained the indestructible heaven scroll that required him to spend 10,000 years just to comprehend the first layer. Even if he went to Huyang Academy, what was he supposed to learn? If he had really said so, Ling Dongxing might think that he had been possessed. "Yutong, come, 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 come. This is my father," he said as he glanced at Lu Yutong, hurriedly beckoning her to come over with a wave of his hands, changing the subject. "Yutong hereby greets Ling Clan's clan head." Lu Yutong performed the greeting etiquette of a junior. Ling Dongxing was startled. He did not know who Lu Yutong was, yet he could tell that she was a martial artist of the element gathering tier just like him, and that her cultivation didn't differ much from his own. Both of them were at the 9th layer of element gathering tier. Most martial artists would be able to tell the cultivation level of those weaker than themselves. Ling Han was an exception. After all, he had brought along the amazing knowledge of a warrior of the heaven tier from his past life. With this being the case, she could completely stand at the same level as he, and there was no need for her to perform the greeting of a junior. Wait, could it be? He suddenly looked both joyful and surprised. Could it be because of Ling Han? This young girl liked his son. With this thought, he could not restrain his delight. This girl seemed to be only about 17 or 18 years old, yet shockingly, she was already at the 9th layer of element gathering tier. Her talent definitely had to be extremely high. With such an excellent companion, so what if Ling Han's own cultivation level was poorer? No wonder this brat didn't want to go to Huyang Academy. It must be that he did not want to be separated from her. Hey, this brat was actually an affectionate character. You little brat. Ling Dongxing first glared at Ling Han, then said to Lu Yutong, Miss, where are you from? The Lu clan of the Imperial City, Lu Yutong replied. Ling Dongxing was shocked. The Lu clan of the Imperial City. Although there were many in the world with the surname Lu, there was only one Lu clan in the Imperial City, one of the 8 great clans, with power which was only below that of the Imperial family in the whole of Rain country. Such a great background. Wait, you should be the one sent from Huyang Academy to fetch Hannah to the academy, right? He suddenly saw a flash of light. Otherwise, how could it be possible someone of the Lu clan from the Imperial City would appear here? Yes, Ling clan head, Lu Yutong said softly. Ling Dongxing could not help looking over at Ling Han, and in his heart thought that although his son was not capable and without talent in martial arts, his ability to pick up girls really took one's breath away. The other was here only to fetch him, so how did he manage to capture the other's heart? Moreover, he only needed several days. Ling Han had inherited the graceful, charming demeanor of his younger days. Yes, it had to be it. But since Lu Yutong was someone from Huyang Academy, why wouldn't Ling Han follow her then? The two of them would both be at the Yang Academy, so there wouldn't be any worry about being in 2 separate places. Father, I would like to be by your side for a while longer. I can go to the academy anytime later anyway, Ling Han said. He did not want to scare his father, and thus planned to proceed slowly, and let Ling Dongxing accept the change in him bit by bit. Ling Dongxing gave a hearty laugh, and said, good. After all, the one who would be fetching him was still here, so Ling Han could go to Huyang Academy at any time he wanted. He patted Ling Han's shoulder and was just about to say something more on the topic, but made a shocked expression as he noticed, Hannah, you've broken through. Finally there is someone to share the shock I have experienced, Lu Yutong thought. I broke through, Ling Han nodded. I have only departed for 10 days, and you did not just break through, you actually broke through 2 layers. Ling Dongxing's surprise did not decrease any bit. This kind of progression rate was completely inconceivable. If Ling Han had only broken through 1 layer, then it could be explained that Ling Han had been well prepared, and had been at the same layer for too long a period of time and thus induced a one-time explosion using the accumulated origin power. But 2 whole layers. This would practically shock others to death. Was his son really a piece of trash? If this was still considered a piece of trash, then was there still any genius in this world? Seeing the twitching corners of Ling Dongxing's mouth, Lu Yutong instantly felt comforted in her heart. She didn't want to be the only one to always suffer this kind of great shock. It's acceptable, Ling Han nodded. Ling Dongxing and Lu Yutong both rolled their eyes. Only, acceptable. However, Ling Dongxing instantly laughed heartily, saying, ha, let's see who would dare to say my son is a piece of trash in the future. Which father would not want his son to be successful in life? So far, Ling Han could only be a piece of trash due to the limitations of his spirit base, yet now Ling Dongxing felt as if he had seen a spark of hope. Father, I obtained a fateful encounter, Ling Han said. Ling Dongxing nodded. If there had been no fateful encounter, how would Ling Han be able to make such quick progress? However, this fateful encounter was indeed extraordinarily large. Alchemy Emperor of the Divine Tao. Chapter 13. Ling Dongxing's Regret. Father, I will definitely not disappoint you. I will only make you proud of me. Ling Han said. Good. You truly am Ling Dongxing's son. Ling Dongxing too was excited to the point of shedding tears, although he did not know what kind of fateful encounter Ling Han had obtained. The present him could only feel joyful, excited and delighted. He wanted nothing more than to announce to the whole world that his son, Ling Dongxing's son, was not a piece of trash. Lu Yutong looked at this scene and, for some reason, the corners of her eyes felt slightly wet. "Father, I would like to discuss something with you." Ling Han pulled Ling Dongxing to a corner of their courtyard and let Lu Yutong go to rest first. There were some words that could only be said to his father and, after all, Lu Yutong had not yet obtained his true approval and trust. "What kind of matter is it for you to be so mysterious about it?" Ling Dongxing asked with a smile and a bit of curiosity. He was curious what the words that could not even be heard by Lu Yutong could be. He naturally thought that Ling Han and Lu Yutong were already a couple. Ling Han said, "Father, let me look at your spirit base." One could actually view the spirit base using a special means, but for those in the element gathering tier, they could directly project an image of their spirit base without having to resort to any supporting method. Ling Dongxing could not help frowning, before saying, "Why?" "I would like to find a cultivation technique that best suits you, taking into consideration your spirit base," Ling Han said. Ling Dongxing could not help being secretly speechless. How many cultivation techniques had this son of his gotten his hands on to actually be able to choose a cultivation technique best suited to the individual according to their type of spirit base? If he had not just witnessed Ling Han's miracle, he would not believe his words one bit. He shook his head, yet did not say a single word. "Father," when Ling Han looked at Ling Dongxing, he realized there seemed to be some kind of hidden story. Ling Dongxing exhaled a sigh and said, "No matter what the cultivation technique is, it's useless. My spirit base is already destroyed." "What?" Ling Han called softly, but very soon, an enraged expression slipped onto his face. "Who did it?" Ling Dongxing was a warrior of the element gathering tier, so there was no way that his spirit base had been disabled from the start. Thus, the logical conclusion was that it had been crippled by someone else. Ling Han was someone who would cover the shortcomings of his own people. Moreover, this was his own father, so naturally he would be seething in anger. "This matter is related to your mother," Ling Dongxing sighed, and his face revealed a flash of tenderness, though there also seemed to be remorse and wrath mixed with it. To put it shortly, it was an extremely complicated expression. "Mother," Ling Han murmured. According to this body's memories, Ling Dongxing had never once mentioned anything about his mother to him. Every time he asked about his mother, Ling Dongxing would immediately change the subject. The only thing he knew was that, not long after his birth, his mother had passed away. "In the past, I thought that the issue about your mother would forever be buried within the depths of my heart, but now," Ling Dongxing paused. "Hannah, if you can achieve element gathering tier within 3 years' time, then I shall tell you about your mother. She's not dead." A powerful excitement rose up within Ling Han's heart. The heavens were truly generous to him, not only gifting him with fatherly love, but also gifting him with the chance to obtain motherly love as well. He laughed heartily, and said, "How difficult would that be? I don't need 3 years, I will be able to break through to element gathering tier within 3 months' time." Ling Dongxing was shaken. 3 months to break through from the 4th layer of body refining tier to element gathering tier. Was this possible? Even for him, who had once been acclaimed as the greatest genius of Grey Cloud Town, it had taken a whole 2 years' time to make such a gigantic leap. But once he recalled that Ling Han had broken through 2 layers within a mere 7 days, to break through to element gathering tier within 3 months didn't look all that impossible. He was startled for a moment, before he said, "Very well, if you can break through to element gathering tier within 3 months, then I shall tell you everything, and you will be the one to go and rescue your mother." Rescue. This meant that his mother was currently confined in some place. No wonder Ling Dongxing had always deceived him by saying his mother had passed away, so it had been a white lie. Ling Han nodded, but he still said with a smile, "Doesn't father want to rescue mother with your own hands?" Ling Dongxing's fierce eyes widened, and he showed an excited expression, yet very quickly calmed down again. He said, "My spirit base is already destroyed. I have to take return origin pills just to recover origin power. There is no way for me to advance forward. And to save your mother would require at least the cultivation level of flower blossom tier." Aside from the legendary Shattering Void tier, there were in total 9 tiers in martial arts, which were respectively Body Refining, Element Gathering, Gushing Spring, Spiritual Ocean, Spiritual Pedestal, Flower Blossom, Spiritual Infant, Deity Transformation and Heaven tiers. Flower Blossom tier, the 6th tier. What kind of concept was this? The strongest warrior of the 8 great clans of Rain Country was only of the spiritual pedestal tier, and according to the rumors, the Imperial clan possessed extremely powerful warriors of the Flower Blossom tier to keep watch over the central administration, which was what kept the 8 great clans in check, ensuring they have no thoughts of trying anything funny. Someone who had reached the cultivation of the Flower Blossom tier would be able to start their own country to hand down to their descendants. However, to Ling Han, who had once been a warrior of the Heaven tier, so what if it was the Flower Blossom tier? And in this new life, all of his starting conditions were even more outstanding: Immortal Grade Spirit Base, Indestructible Heaven Scroll. Moreover, he had already passed through all 9 tiers of martial arts once, so there was no way he would encounter any kind of bottleneck, and his excellent alchemist skills would be able to provide him with all kinds of alchemical pills and medicines. 30 years, at most, 50 years, and he would be able to once again return to the pinnacle. Ling Han laughed and said, "Father, the spirit base is a part of the body. There is no such thing as being unable to heal the spirit base, just let me take a look." Ling Dongxing stared at Ling Han for a while before he finally nodded, and said, "Very well." He raised both arms as if he were holding something and, with a mental command, he projected the spirit base in his dantian into open view. Ling Han was slightly shocked. Ling Dongxing's spirit base was surprisingly the low-level heaven grade, broken edge sword, of the gold alignment. No wonder that even though Ling Dongxing had long had his spirit base crippled, he was still in the 9th layer of element gathering tier. That was because the speed of his cultivation was very quick, and he had long since achieved this kind of cultivation level. However, currently this broken edge sword had long lost its blade, and only a bit of the sword hilt was left behind. There was no possible way that it could continue to absorb spiritual chi, so it was practically completely destroyed. The destruction of the spirit base meant that it was no longer possible for the owner's martial arts to improve further. However, making it recover was of no difficulty to Ling Han. He said, "Father, your spirit base can still be healed, but I currently do not have the necessary medicinal ingredients on hand, so I need some time." There really was hope. Ling Dongxing could not help it as his hands tightened into fists. If he could, he would of course want to personally save his wife from her abyss of suffering, but because his spirit base had been destroyed, he could only place his hopes on his son. In the past, when Ling Han's spirit base was awakened, and yet it was revealed to be the 5 elements disarray spirit base, Ling Dongxing felt unbearably disappointed and painful. From that moment, he gave up his hopes and deceived Ling Han by saying his mother had already died, shouldering all the pain and longing by himself. "Hannah, is what you're saying the truth?" he asked in a trembling voice. "Of course it's the truth," Ling Han replied solemnly. "Give me 3 years, no, 2 years' time, and I will definitely find the medicinal ingredients for Father and create an alchemical pill to heal Father's spirit base." Ling Dongxing said generously, "Very well, then at that time, the 2 of us, father and son, will join forces to save your mother and reunite our family." Ling Han nodded. "However, you will still have to obediently go to Huyang Academy for me." Ling Dongxing suddenly switched the topic. Ling Han could not help feeling a little depressed. He had already displayed such excellent talents, so why did his old man still not believe him, and compel him to go to Huyang Academy? However, his father's doing was all for his sake, and was well meant. Since his father wanted him to go so much, then he'd just go. It didn't matter where he cultivated anyway. Moreover, Grey Cloud Town was too small, and could not possibly supply the cultivation resources he required anyway. Alchemy Emperor of the Divine Tao. Chapter 14, Predecessor's Obsession. Ling Han revealed the despicable deeds done by Ling Xuanhuan, his sons and his grandson to Ling Dongxing. That group of people obviously would not be giving up just like this, and they'd definitely try to do something, so Ling Dongxing needed to be prepared for it. "I understand." Ling Dongxing seemed extremely confident. He had been openly competing with Ling Zhongquan for many years, yet Ling Zhongquan could only remain as the chief butler, completely suppressed by him. Years ago, Ling Dongxing also used to be a favored, proud genius, an all-powerful existence within the clan. If it was not for the destruction of his spirit base, someone like Ling Zhongquan would be nothing in his eyes. Heng, he dared to bully my son. If I don't beat him to the point that he has to be bedridden for a month, then my surname isn't Ling. He said ruthlessly, eyes cold. So my old man is also someone who would cover for his own people. Those words were very much to Ling Han's liking. Ling Han spoke with his father for a moment longer before leaving. As the head of a large clan, Ling Dongxing naturally had many matters to deal with. Moreover, he still had to go and thrash Ling Zhongquan, that old dog who dared to take advantage of his absence to bully his son. Ling Han had no interest to see that old dog being helplessly and mercilessly thrashed by Ling Dongxing. He returned to his room to start considering the direction he should take in the future. Cultivation would definitely require the support of alchemical pills, and the reason he had reached heaven tier in a mere 200 years in his last life was because he himself was a genius alchemist. However, even a clever housewife cannot cook a meal without rice. Although he now had in his hands all kinds of knowledge about alchemy, he still needed the ingredients for concocting pills. And the higher the grade of the alchemical pill, the more priceless and valuable the ingredients needed would be. Actually, if someone were to compare the Ling clan's wealth with the cost of these ingredients, the results could be summed up with only one word: poor. He had to do something. Otherwise, the speed of his cultivation would definitely be unable to achieve the expected standard. To put it simply, he had to earn money. Ling Han currently managed to think of two ways. Firstly, sale of cultivation techniques and martial arts skills. In his last life, he had accumulated a staggering number of top-rate secret arts. Should he take any one of them to an auction, he'd definitely earn an astronomical wealth. However, this was not appropriate. Because the current Ling Han was simply much too weak. If he still had the cultivation level of heaven tier, then even if he released a heaven-grade cultivation technique, others naturally would not dare to have any evil ideas. However, if he did something like that now, he would only become a target for others to force him to hand over even more cultivation techniques. If he really did have to sell any cultivation techniques or martial arts skills, he could only sell those that were not too far from his current martial arts skill level. Moreover, he couldn't sell too many at a time. Then that left only the second method, which was to sell alchemical pills. This was his original profession. Besides, alchemy was a very respected profession. Whoever dared to disrespect an alchemist could easily cause public outrage, so there would definitely be serious consideration before anyone attempted such an idiotic thing. Within the current Rain country, at least 80% of the country's alchemists were involved with the Heaven's Medicine Pavilion, while the remaining 20% were esteemed guests of the various great clans and factions. The alchemical pills concocted by them would thus only be used by members of these great powers, without any possibility of them being sold in public. Lastly, there were a few alchemists who were loners, and were not working for any kind of power. If they lacked money, they would simply concoct alchemical pills for sale. Thus, they were completely free from any obligations. For example, in Grey Cloud Town, the supply of high-grade alchemical pills and medicines would only be found in the Heaven's Medicine Pavilion, so those who wanted to buy them could only choose to go there. Low-grade alchemical pills would be distributed for sale in batches by Heaven's Medicine Pavilion, offered to the two great clans in the town. Thus, there would be mutual benefit for both the two great clans and the Heaven's Medicine Pavilion. After all, the two great clans were very influential in the area. The two great clans referred to Ling clan and Cheng clan. Both clans would be able to obtain 50% of the total low-grade alchemical pills from the Heaven's Medicine Pavilion respectively. However, although the two great clans only obtained very little profit when compared to the Heaven's Medicine Pavilion, in terms of alchemical pills, they could be said to have gained an overwhelming profit. Alchemy was an extremely high-paying profession. This was also one of the reasons why alchemists would be regarded as esteemed guests by the various great powers. If the various clans and factions did not have their own alchemists, then their purchase of alchemical pills and medicines would incur a horrifyingly astronomical expense. In this life, Ling Han did not plan to exert too much effort in the path of alchemy. Thus, he only wanted to become a lone alchemist. If he lacked money, then he would concoct a few pills. It was enough as long as he had sufficient funds at his disposal. Then it's decided, I'll use alchemy as a support for my martial arts. However, now that Ling Dongxing had returned, Ling Han's freedom was also restricted. His old man was rushing him to immediately go to the academy. Naturally not Huyang Academy, but Grey Cloud Academy. Huyang Academy was established by the imperial clan of Rain Country, and while Grey Cloud Academy was also established by the government, there was no way to compare the two academies' resources. After all, the disparity was simply too large. However, Ling Dongxing still had hopes that Ling Han could become an overnight celebrity in Grey Cloud Academy. All fathers naturally wanted their sons to excel and become successful people. Ling Han naturally would not want to disappoint his father, so he could only agree to go to the academy. He didn't have much to do anyway, so he'd just go to the academy for a few days and show off a bit to satisfy his father's ambition. This way, Ling Dongxing wouldn't see any need to restrict him further. Moreover, he also wanted to realize his predecessor's long-cherished wish and clear his reputation of being a piece of trash. When he departed, Lu Yutong naturally was beside him, and the both of them arrived at Grey Cloud Academy. However, it was not very appropriate for Lu Yutong to accompany him even during classes, so she could only walk around in the academy. Her prowess also meant that she had no fear of anyone trying anything funny with her because of her extreme beauty. Ling Han walked slowly. It was not a must for him to attend classes. It was more than enough to just come to the academy. The reason why he was here was only out of respect for his father. He would not blindly obey Ling Dongxing's every single word. Just as he came to the martial training court, he could not help but pause in his steps as a strong pounding rose up within his body, causing him to, for some reason, turn and head in the direction of the martial training court. This was an obsession originating from his predecessor. His predecessor had in total two matters that he could not let go of. The first was naturally his father, and the second was a woman within this Grey Cloud Academy. If he had not come, it would not have affected him, but now that he was here, this obsession immediately became incomparably heavy. His predecessor had once liked a woman by the name of Xuanhuan. She was a student of Grey Cloud Academy, and the entanglement between the two of them was an extremely complicated one. 7 years ago, when Xuanhuan was just a little girl at the age of 10, she had already displayed a surprising beauty. Ling Dongxing acted quickly and arranged an engagement contract between her and Ling Han. Because the Ling clan was one of the two great clans in town and Ling Han was the son of the clan's clan head, the Shun clan naturally had no objection and gladly agreed to this match. However, when Ling Han was 12, through examination, his spirit base was confirmed to be 5 elements disarray spirit base. If it was just this, then according to the power of the Ling clan, the Shun clan would still not dare to have any wild thoughts. The problem was that Xuanhuan had a high-level Earth-grade spirit base. Moreover, Xuanhuan was also extremely gifted in martial arts, so she managed to live up to such an excellent spirit base. As her cultivation level soared, she was regarded as a treasure by the higher-ups of the academy, who always meant to send her to Huyang Academy because they believed that only there would her talent truly blossom. As the two of them grew up, and the gap between Xuanhuan and Ling Han's cultivation levels widened ever further, she finally requested the Ling clan to break the engagement contract. Ling Dongxing naturally did not want to agree. This would not only be a blow to the pride of the Ling clan, but would also break his son's heart. Yet his predecessor agreed, because his affection for his woman was bone deep. Although they were now no more than strangers, his predecessor was still very much in love with the girl and kept on secretly paying attention to her all this while. The strength of his affection was so big that, even though his predecessor had already died, the body's instinctive reaction was to follow it, affecting the current Ling Han. I need to get rid of this obsession, otherwise, in the future, this may become my inner demon and affect my progress, Ling Han thought. As someone who used to be a warrior of the heaven tier, he naturally knew the danger an inner demon represented. Then I'll go to see her once more. After this, there will no longer be any relation between the two of us. Ling Han thought, as if negotiating with his predecessor. Alchemy Emperor of the Divine Tao. Chapter 15. Meal. Ling Han walked into the martial training court and saw a beautiful young girl practicing martial arts skills in the center. She was wearing a white warrior dress and her movements were as graceful as a deity's. Around her was a number of young men and women who had gathered to watch. The young women's gazes were heated whilst the men wore intoxicated expressions as they observed her practice. That young girl was Xuanhuan. Every day, she would be cultivating in this location. She truly was very beautiful, but when compared to Lu Yutong, her beauty fell short. Moreover, Ling Han had long been used to seeing remarkably stunning beauties in his last life, so naturally he was not moved. His predecessor was a hopeless romantic. However, now that he was dead, the one in charge was he who had once been a warrior of the heaven tier. Ling Han took a deep breath. He felt the last remnants of his predecessor's obsessive feelings vanish into thin air. Now he was finally the one and only owner of this body. His predecessor had two things he could not let go of. One was his father, and the other was Xuanhuan. Now that these two obsessions have been completely neutralized, the predecessor could finally and completely depart, and no longer have the slightest bit of effect over this body. In truth, his predecessor knew very well that he and Xuanhuan could never be, so he had only meant to secretly admire her from afar. Otherwise, if this obsession was something like wanting to marry her and no one else, Ling Han would be in big trouble. Get out of here. It was at this moment that Xuanhuan stopped her movements and shouted these words coldly at him. How overbearing. Did she think that her family owned the martial training court? Naturally, Ling Han didn't want to even bother with this kind of condescending, arrogant girl who thought the whole world revolved around her. After all, the obsession had vanished, and in his opinion, Xuanhuan simply could not be considered incomparably beautiful, nor was she shockingly talented. She really didn't even have the qualifications for him to consider her for one moment longer. For the sake of his predecessor, he did not react to her insulting words, and turned away, intending to leave. Stop right there. A young man dressed in embroidered clothing sprang out and, with a few steps, rushed in front of Ling Han, blocking his way. He said, "Didn't you hear younger sister disciple Shen's words? She told you to roll out of here. You don't use your legs to roll." His name was Cheng Hao, and he was the second son of the clan head of the other great clan in Great Cloud Town. He was also one of Xuanhuan's admirers. However, Xuanhuan had never treated him any differently from the others. Now, he had finally found an opportunity to show off in front of her, teach Ling Han a hard lesson in order to obtain Xuanhuan's favor. Moreover, this was not the first time he had bullied Ling Han, because among the people he could bully, Ling Han's status was the highest and thus bullying him gave him the most satisfaction. Ling Han's eyes automatically turned severe. The images of his predecessor being bullied by Cheng Hao played vividly before his eyes. Originally, he would not have bothered had Cheng Hao remained a simple face in the crowd, but now that he had spotted Cheng Hao, even if the latter had not provoked him in this manner, he had no plans of letting matters rest. "Are you looking to die?" he said in a murderous voice. "Ha ha ha ha, Ling Trash, are you threatening me?" Cheng Hao gave a laugh, yet very quickly his gaze turned severe. "We haven't seen each other for just a few days, and now you've grown so brave that you actually dare to talk back to me." Everyone in the area started laughing. Ling Han's identity as a piece of trash was well known throughout the whole academy, so these words naturally seemed like the greatest joke in the world to them. Ling Han smiled coldly and walked towards Cheng Hao. "What is it now? Are you going to beg me to spare you?" "If you're going to beg, then make sure you speak loudly enough," Cheng Hao said nonchalantly. "Pa." It was at this moment that a sharp, crisp slap was heard, causing everyone's laughter to suddenly stop. Cheng Hao covered his face with one hand. His face expressed his utter disbelief. Just now, he had actually been given a slap by Ling Han, given a slap by a piece of trash. How great a humiliation was this? He immediately entered berserk mode, and blue veins popped up all over his forehead as he said thickly, "Are you tired of living that you actually dare to hit me?" "I can't hit you," Ling Han said calmly. His predecessor had been bullied by Cheng Hao numerous times. He was only getting back a little interest now. "How dare you?" Cheng Hao never thought that Ling Han would not only not beg for his life out of panic, but actually dared to talk back to him. He was originally already extremely furious, so how could he hold himself back now? He immediately raised his hand, which flew towards Ling Han. The current Ling Han was in the 4th layer of body refining tier. Even though that was still 2 layers lower than Cheng Hao, they were both in the middle stage of body refining tier. With Ling Han's battle experience as someone who had once wielded the power of the heaven tier, how could he possibly lose? Pa! Cheng Hao had just raised his hand, but Ling Han had already reacted accordingly and his right hand flew out. Although he acted later, he reached his target earlier and, once again, another solid slap landed on Cheng Hao's face. With the great strength behind this slap, Cheng Hao staggered, causing the hand he raised to only hit empty air. Trash! Ling Han said in a calm tone, shaking his head. Everyone was silent. This label of trash originally belonged to Ling Han, but now no one could find it in themselves to laugh, for Cheng Hao had indeed been slapped twice. If the first time could be considered to be the fault of Cheng Hao's carelessness, then the second time could only be Ling Han's display of ability. But how was this possible? Wasn't Ling Han the publicly acclaimed biggest piece of trash in the whole academy? Meanwhile, Cheng Hao had been enraged to the point that both his eyes had turned red. With a great roar, he threw himself at Ling Han. However, the difference between himself and Ling Han was much too large. Pa! 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 No matter how he attacked, Ling Han somehow managed to act later yet hit first, each slap causing him to stumble. His attack power naturally subsided by itself. I see now, Ling Han's power is actually not as strong as Cheng Hao's, it seems to be only somewhere around 4th or 5th layer of body refining tier. However, his 6th sense is too terrifying. Every time Cheng Hao makes a move, it's as if he already knew where Cheng Hao would attack, and make the necessary adjustments in advance. 4th or 5th layer of body refining tier. That can't be, he has the 5 elements disarray spirit base, so even if he wants to break through to the middle stage of the body refining tier, he would only be able to achieve that at least after he's 20. No matter what his cultivation level is, just his skill in reading attacks is scary enough. After watching for a period of time, the students in the area too discovered this secret. The secret was actually something very simple. Ling Han would predict all of Cheng Hao's attacks and react accordingly in advance to compensate for the gap between their cultivation levels. Meanwhile, Cheng Hao was completely slapped silly. There was a persistent buzzing in his head and his face was scarlet and swollen, turning it into a pig's head. Only the fury he felt kept on supporting his continuous attacks, but all of it was pointless effort. He was finally scared, and no longer dared to make any move. But how could Ling Han just let matters go like this? Pa! 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 He kept up a furious litany of slaps, and Cheng Hao's lip very quickly was split. Fresh blood was spilled, and he looked extremely pitiful. At this moment, no one dared to step up and intervene. I surrender this time, don't hit me anymore, Cheng Hao pleaded. However, Ling Han did not stop his movements. In the past, when Cheng Hao bullied his predecessor, when had he ever been merciful? He thrashed him for a moment longer before he said, "Kneel." What? Cheng Hao felt this was utterly absurd, this trash actually dared tell him to kneel. If he really knelt, then not only would his pride be completely shattered, even the Cheng clan would be laughed at by others. After all, he was the second son of the Cheng clan's clan head. This was too much. Even when he and his older brother had bullied Ling Han in the past, they had only dared to thrash the other until his whole body was covered with injuries. They had not dared to make the other kneel down. This could possibly spark off a blood feud between the two clans.